Good evening. This is John Bushka. I want to talk about my situation with my trust and as a retired person and my self-publishing activities and a possible conflict that is coming in between the two of them tonight. Let me just start out by saying that since 2001, the end of 2001, I've essentially been retired. I haven't been able to actually support myself fully with work like I did before, but and I do. When my mother passed away at the end of 2010, she did leave quite an estate, and I had quite a bit of accumulated savings from my work, but I also was able to um, distribute to myself some of the estate here, but then some of it belongs to beneficiaries, and that can have a say on what I can do as far as my own speech and books and everything, and making movies and so forth, what I can invest in, where I can invest money and so forth, and what I can actually do. That can matter. So I want to talk a little bit about that. You'll know that at the end of 2010, at the end of 2021, I deleted a lot of my blogs. At one time, there were about 20 blogs, or 16 of them on Blogger and 4 on WordPress. And over the year 2022, I pared it back to just one blog on WordPress for security, one flat site. But that's the blog, and that's the flat site with a lot of references, like a lot of my old movie reviews and so forth I recovered and everything, and also a commercial site to manage the sales of all 4 books on web.com and everything. But getting back to some of that was anticipatory, because I felt with the political climate the way it was, and let me just move down here to a picture that's relevant. Yeah, that was the grade school I went to in the 1950s, and it also became Capitol Hospice, where my mother passed away in 2010. For me to continue with the political climate getting the way it was, with the polarization and the cancellations and kind of this very collectivist attitude, that intersectionality and this anger if you didn't join up with people who claimed that they were oppressed by, and so forth, that I didn't think, and the way some providers were working and the way the tech industry was working, even financial, I was concerned I wouldn't be able to keep this going unless I could somehow make it pay for itself. That's one of the reasons I have been spending a lot more money in the last 18 months on promotional attempts, helping pay for book promotions, and also going to 2 pitch fests for movie ideas. So the emphasis has certainly shifted. As also, I want to finish a music project, and also have a novel to finish that I'd like to get done. So there's a lot of material that I do that doesn't go online as soon as it used to. But so the blogging I did, I had my own way of being very I think being rather influential on some issues, gays in the military particularly, and some free speech issues. The COPA, the Child Online Protection Act issue, FOSTA later on. In some areas I did have a voice and people knew who I was, and I was pretty effective. But that I didn't think I could sustain. So I've had to behave a lot more commercially since the start of about 2022. Now, one of the things, again, I wanted to go over, particularly because I have the trust and I have the inheritance. I never engage in any activity that asking people for money. That I won't do that for a nonprofit either, other than very trivial campaigns on Facebook I've done. But I don't normally, as an individual, participate in fundraisers. I don't, and I don't really feel I can do that. I don't think I can have a Patreon account where I have to ask people for donations. I can ask for subscriptions, but because I have an inheritance, I don't think I can ask for donations. So there are restrictions of what I can do, compared to a lot of other people that are very active today on YouTube. So I have to work very differently. Again, on the trust, what I do every month is I give some donations. I move some money back to the trust. It's kind of rent on the condo, and then I use it for donations from the trust. Some of them to the beneficiaries and some to some charities, including the church that my mother had supported. But a couple of them are, LGB plus T, and that's getting controversial. One of them I've dropped because they were a little bit getting kind of careless and partisan on this trans issue, and that's the issue. There's another big charity that is the beneficiary that is involved in the right now the trans issue, which sort of after gay marriage was passed in 2015, it started getting attention, and it's quite a problem for me. Basically, it's a very different issue than gay rights, which was a matter of who you were attracted to and your own behavior, your own choice of partners, and so forth. I guess the gender identity issue is more what you perceive, who you perceive you are. And in my case, there's no issue. I'm a cis male. In fact, I recently wanted to also point out that this recent blog post, and I'll give the address for it, but I wrote a recent blog post explaining why I don't think this applies to me, even though I was kind of a feminine boy in a sense, or sissy boy, as they used to say. I sort of outgrew it with puberty, and not completely, but to me right now, I have an identity with the activities that I have, but the activities I have aren't gendered. There's no reason for me to have a separate gender identity just because some of my activities are not as masculine as others or something. It's just simply an identity. And also the polarity issue, the Rosenfels issue that I've talked about recently too. I wrote a post about that recently, about the Rosenfels books, and I think that's down on. I have to bring, here it is. The whole polarity theory back in the 1970s from the Paul Rosenfels community and so forth. That's for personal growth. That's not for having a political identity. You adapt and you live as fulfilling a life as you can, and you identify yourself the way you want to, but you don't need to gender it. I think people who need to feel like they need to gender it is because they feel and this is particularly true of youth, they feel they will be under pressure to conform to their birth sex, as I was under pressure when I was younger. And so it's a very natural thing to propose to people that they can have a different gender identity, or do have a gender different identity. And they won't be pressured as much, and they'll feel better, and they'll do better. So what this comes down to, I think, a lot of times, what's going on right now is the center of the controversy seems to be around gender affirming care, which, when it's not actually medically necessary, but it is simply to confirm a belief that a minor person who's not even a teenager yet has about their gender. And it's not even an intersex condition or something. It's simply something they believe that they are likely to outgrow. And there's a lot of conflicting literature on this in Europe. They're backing down on gender affirming care. The organizations in the United States still are standing by it. I think they were politically influenced. So it's very hard to know what the truth is. But the bottom line is, if you have any more than an occasional person who needs it, which you can handle on a case by case basis, then in the schools you have a school with having to teach younger kids what it's all about, even kids who will not have any issue with their sex, birth sex, and who will grow up normally and don't even need to be forced to think about this until they're older. There will be a problem for them. The whole pronoun issue is put upon them and everything. The social and emotional learning issue seems to be overdone, seems to be driven by this. And there, as you know, some states are passing laws that, even though the medical associations seem to still recommend gender affirming care, many states want to make it illegal because they think that not just the right wing, they think the medical organizations have acted in bad faith and gone along with the far left and so forth, and even with what they call queer theory or something, where you want to get rid of gender altogether because some people do better. It supports patriarchy. It supports some people doing better than other people can do, and so forth. It's a collectivist way of thinking. So anyway, my feeling about that is kind of agnostic. I'll listen to the facts, and the facts are not completely clear on this, because even from reputable places they differ. And I know each side has its talking points and everything. I get told that all the time. And the left still insists it's who is most oppressed, and I just don't think that way. I think as an individual, it's up to me to own my own issues as much as possible, and it's not so much a matter of belonging to groups. And I don't generally work as part of a group. I work by myself. I own my own identity. It doesn't need to be combined with anybody else's, at least as far as gender is concerned. So I don't really share this idea of allyship or something, when the facts that it's based on seem so speculative, even if you try to read the literature as objectively as possible. So anyway, that's what I had. It is, I've said that I don't, by giving money to an organization doesn't mean that I agree with everything. And that's also true of beneficiaries. But if my own self-expression is less than it used to be as I get older, it becomes more of an issue, that whether I can work with others and whether I'm willing to work with others when I disagree as an individual with some of their aims that seem to be much more about who their ally groups are and what they see as a battle over collective political power rather than individual social justice. So that's kind of how I see it, and that's what I wanted to leave you with today.